Okay, so I wanted to make a video because my right-handed irons from UGP just came in the other day. I got a nice set of T100s, 5 to pitching wedge, Nippon 120S's in there. Really cool to have the first set of right-handed golf clubs, obviously, that I've ever owned as part of kind of this right-handed journey that I'm doing. So I want to do something that I think, everyone should do when they get a set of irons. Obviously I was fit for them, but I want to hit some shots with each one, see how far they're going, see where I might be struggling for distance or distance gapping. I'm going to do a little bit of a ball test using Pro V1 today. So kind of just a fun, casual session. We're going to find out how far I can hit each of these. Maybe find out where I start to struggle. Am I able to hit the 5-iron or the 6-iron, or are they going to be too low flying? And is a ball like a Pro V1 suitable for me? Or, in a future session, should I try something higher or lower spin? And just to get an idea of, what I can start to expect when I eventually get out on the golf course to play some right-handed rounds. So I'm going to take you through club by club. Not going to hit a million shots with each, mostly, to be honest with you, due to fatigue. I usually get about 30-40 swings in right-handed, and I'm pretty tired. So I'll hit a couple with each where I feel like I've hit them solid, so we can use them as a nice baseline average. Pretty good swing. Hung back on it a little bit, but I think that's a decent strike. That's a good one. Okay, so it looks like pitching wedge will be just under 120. Better start with a 9. A little hooky, but that's not really the flight we want. It's a little low spin. A little better. A little thin, but I would not be upset with it on the course. That's a nice 8. Okay, so just over 150 with the 8. That's nice. That'll sit well as well. Pretty similar. Yeah, just over 150, which is very happy with that. Pretty good 7-iron. Definitely gonna be working on that shape. It's a lot of draw for now, but we're getting there. But that's about the distance that I was hoping to get. That felt like a pretty nice one. A little better strike. Yep. That's a nice one. A little better sequence on that swing. Use my lower body a bit better. Okay, so yeah, 167 to 170 seems to be an ideal strike with these. Getting into the 6-iron here, this is a little unfamiliar territory. Most of what I've done has been with a 7-iron with Larry, so we'll see how it goes. I think it's obviously not going to be a high percentage of good strikes with these, so I'll probably hit a bunch of shots and take, as I've been doing, kind of the best few just to see what I'm capable of with it. But already as a right-handed player, I'm looking at the length of the shaft and the amount of loft, and I can see from 7-iron to 6-iron, it's starting to make me a little bit more uncomfortable. Not a terrible hit, it was just thin. No, it wasn't bad. That was quite a good hit. It's just a little roasty. Yeah, it's okay. Can't expect to hit these longer clubs straight all the time. It's going to be a learning process. So one thing I'm feeling as I get to these longer clubs, kind of the anxiety of hitting them well gets, in your head a bit more. I really feel that I'm stopping and kind of stalling and my body's not continuing. I'm going to give myself a couple of rehearsals here that Larry gave me. Try to feel the lower body engage and rotate through. Try to apply that to it just becomes so much more important with the longer clubs. You can't get away with those sort of handsy motions with less loft. Much better. And I didn't strike that all that well. It was a little thin, but the sequence of that swing is 1,000 times better. So longest club in the set that I've ordered is the 5-iron. So I mean, the reality is at the level I'm at right now, I think the first couple rounds I go play golf, I don't know based on how I was hitting that 6 that I see myself hitting 5-iron. It might make sense for me to have a hybrid at this point, in the bag, or just, lay up on certain longer shots with a shorter iron. I'm not sure how consistent I can expect to be with this little loft and this long of a shaft. The 7-iron was fairly comfortable. The 8-9 pitching wedge, I think I hit a higher percentage of good strikes that you might hit a green or you might be close to your green. The 5 is definitely going to be a bit trickier, but I want to get some baseline numbers with it. Let's just see what it looks like on a good strike. And then we can kind of decide, is this something I see using in the short term, or is it something I practice with on the range, for a couple months and then start to bring it out onto the course with me as I get a little bit more comfortable. It was actually hit well. It's just an open club face. I'm not upset with how I struck it, though. Honestly, same with that one. Pretty good motion there, pretty good sequence. Just the way it goes, you tend to have a harder time squaring up the longer clubs, especially in my case. I'm pretty good. Yeah, I've got a little bit of a right pattern with the 5-iron, but I'm not going to be upset over it. I think I made 3 pretty good swings, good contact, produced some speed on the club. Not unhappy with that. Yeah, so the pitching wedge, being around a 120 club, the 9-iron being around a 135 club, that's a nice separation there. I think as I work on the shape, get a little bit less draw on that 8-iron, launch the ball a bit higher, it probably will regulate the distance a bit, but I'm not unhappy with those yardage gaps. I mean, it's kind of what I said near the end there with the 5-iron. I just felt like the first 3 clubs, they've got loft on them. It's a little bit easier for me to get, I'm making decent swings, but I can get away with a bad one. And again, important to say, these were not all hit consecutively. I kind of took my best 3 out of 5 attempts just to get a general idea of, what my decent shots would look like on the course. But in the short irons, I think they're working quite nicely. There's yardage gaps there, and they felt nice and easy to swing, and I think I was able to make decent contact with them. 7 and 6 didn't do too bad. The 7, yardage gap wise, it's about 13 yards more than the 8-iron. Certainly not a big deal. The 7-iron distance, ball speed, launch, the spin's a bit low, which is why I mentioned to you guys I think a different golf ball might make sense for me. But I think in terms of actual height on the golf ball, those 7-irons were still 104 feet in the air, so I'm probably not going to be too concerned about adding extra spin yet. I think for now, a ball like a Pro V1 or there's tons of different balls that have similar profiles. I could probably stick with something like that. With the 6-iron, my concerns there are really just, it's a consistency thing, right? Like I could definitely hit a 6-iron that had, 123 ball speed or so and separated itself from the 7-iron by more. But you can see it's just a bit more erratic once I get a longer club in my hand, less loft. I started to have a bit of a left-right pattern. Those are the 5-iron shots there. Obviously, you guys saw them, the ones that I told you I struck well. They were obviously quite a bit right at target. I would have missed any green right. It's not doing a whole lot more than the 6. It is going further, but it's not by a lot. And this is kind of what I expected to see. If I had squared that up, sure, I think it would have been more like a 190 club. But those longer irons are just going to be tough for me to hit consistently because I really don't have much repetition with them. And the longer the club, strike and consistency become an issue. But I think in terms of how the clubs were fit, they are, they're ready to perform and give me the yardage gaps I need. I'm just going to have to accept that once I get past the 7-iron, they're just much higher maintenance clubs, and I'm going to have to get a lot more practice in with longer irons before I start to see, consistent gaps in yardage going into the 6 and the 5-iron. But overall, that's a fun kind of first session for me with the new set of right-handed clubs. I'm happy with how they performed in kind of my first range session with them. As I said, they feel appropriate to how I'm swinging the club in terms of speed and the weight of them. So I'm happy with how UGP and Matt fit me there. I think the Nippons are a nice balance for me. There's enough weight there where I feel like the club is under control, but they're a little bit easier to swing than something in the 135 gram range that is what I do with my left-handed swings. So the traditional lofts are clearly the right choice for me with the T100s. As I work on my delivery, as I get a little bit more, sequence with the downswing, bring the club in a bit more neutral, I'll probably see less of those sort of handsy turnover draws. And those are the ones that really were the ones that were low spin. Mostly it was when I turned the ball over excessively, getting too handsy with it. Those were the ones that were too low in spin. So, I think a mid-spin iron ball like this Pro V1 will probably work for me. in the short term. I'll certainly start the season with that. When going into my first round of golf, I just have to be aware that pitching wedge to 8-iron, I can be reasonably confident with the direction and the contact being pretty decent. And the longest 3-irons that I'll carry, the 7, 6, and a 5, there's going to be a bit of a risk involved there. Kind of have to pick my spots with it. And maybe not use it as much on the course, when I'm trying to get out there and manage my game and shoot a decent score, as a relatively new golfer right-handed. But that's not to say it won't come along, with more practice. Larry and I are going to do some more work, obviously. He hasn't been able to work with me with my own set of irons yet, so we can do some long iron work, and you guys will obviously get to see that as part of the series coming up. So, overall happy with the session. Let me know what you guys thought. I'm hoping that was a pretty realistic kind of iron, practice session and gapping evaluation for someone of my skill level. Maybe some stuff you guys could resonate with, seeing some of those irons bunched up in yardages and how we can address that. As it stands, I don't want to adjust the clubs. I just want to keep working on my golf swing and see how that develops, because I think as I strike it a bit better and more consistently, I think these irons will work quite nicely for me. I just need a little bit more time to practice and work with Larry on it. As always, let me know if you guys have any questions. Happy to answer, and thanks for watching.